Today we're going to look at factoring a polynomial. The steps that I'm going to write down here, you can apply these steps for all of the sections from 9 through section 12. Okay, so these steps can be applied for all of the sections. The first thing that we want to notice is we want to check the order of the polynomial. We want it to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. We want the exponents to be in descending order. So the one that we are going to factor today, the first one, we're going to have 2x squared plus 13x plus 15. This polynomial is in the correct order. The next thing you ask yourself would be, is there a GCF? Do you remember Monday how we looked to see and determine how to find a greatest common factor? You look at the numbers 2, 13, 15. The only common factor they have is 1. So there's no common factor for us to factor out. We look to see if they all have the variable x. The last one does not. So there is not a common variable for the factor. So in this case, there is no common factor for these. What we're going to do is we want to take this polynomial and we want to factor it into two parts. We want it to end up being something like x plus 5 and an x minus 3. We want to have two parentheses that has two terms within each parenthesis. So we'll end up with two binomials. What we're going to do when we factor, do you see how we have the ax squared bxc? The 2 is the a, the 13 is the b, the 15 is the c. So let me just label those. This is the a, the 13 is the b, the 15 is the c. We want to be able to know what those values are. When we factor, do you see how we have an a value here? One thing I like for my students to go ahead and write, on the original problem, when we factor, since our variable is x, they're both going to begin with an x. Then it's going to be either a plus or a minus something. I don't know which sign, so I'm not going to attempt to write those at this time. However, if there is an a value, we're going to put that value here under what's going to be the number part of that term. So let's go ahead and put that a value there. What we're going to do is we check the order. There's not a greatest common factor. We're going to use our calculator and we're going to go to y1. On y1, we are going to multiply a times c. And actually, what you can do is actually just multiply and put the number there. So we'll have a times c divided by x. And then on y2, we want to have y1 plus x. So let me make some notes here for this problem. For this problem, my a is 2, my c is 15. So I'm going to do 2 times 15, and that's going to give me a 30. I'm going to take that 30 and put here. So on my calculator, wait a minute, if I get it, there we go. So on my calculator and on yours, go to the y equals. If you have anything typed in, clear out anything that would be on any of those rows. I'm going to type in 30 divided by x. I multiplied a times c. I typed it in, I put divided by x. On the second row, I wanted to have y1 plus x. Let me show you the simplest way to get y1. I'm going to press alpha, press trace, and we're going to choose the first, the Y1, so we're going to press number 1. And then after we've done that, go ahead and type in plus, and then beside the alpha is the X. Okay, let me write that down for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the Y1, we're going to press alpha, trace, and we're going to choose number 1. So to get this, those are your steps: alpha, trace, and choose number 1. So that will be Y1 plus X. The next thing after we've done this is we are going to choose second table. We're going to choose those buttons, second and then table, and we are going to look in the third column for B. All right. The B is the middle number. In this case, it's the number 13. So let's come back to our calculator together. So what we have here is 30 divided by X, Y1 plus X. Let me repeat those steps again. Alpha, trace, number 1, and then plus X. Now that we have this row here, we can leave it through our problems, and all we're going to do is change that first row. Second, what we're going to do now is second, and then the button that says graph, we're activating the table. So second table, please leave your cursor in the first column. We're going to let our eye go to the third column and look for that B. The middle number was 13. Let me show you why I want you to keep the cursor in the first column. We can go down in all of these, but if I go up, it'll still keep going up if I'm in this very first column. If I go to the second or even the third, if I go to either of these columns, when I go up, notice I'm pressing this dot and it stops. First time I used this, I accidentally had done that when I'm looking in the third column and I was trying to go back up, and I'm like, what in the world is wrong with this calculator? It's broke. No, I should have left it in the first column and I didn't realize at the time. So come back down. Let me move it back over to the first column. You can go up and down everything if you stay in the first column. But if you come over to these, you can only scroll down. You cannot get back up. Okay? So we were looking for 13. We want to find the positive 13. So here's the positive 13. Once you find it, you're going to use what's in column 1 and column 2. There's a 3 and a 10. 3 plus 10 gives us 13. So what happens here is after we go to the third column and we look for the B, let me make note of all of these little things that I already did. Remember earlier we put the divided by. If there was an A value, we're going to put the A there. And let's go ahead and put our X's at the beginning. They're going to be here. Now what we use is whatever we found in column 1, we're going to put in the first parenthesis. Whatever we found in column 2, we're going to put in the second parenthesis. I'm going to make note that if something can be simplified, we simplify if possible. And we may have to possibly do a bottoms up. It's just the term that I use. I'll show you that in just a second as we're doing that simplifying. So for this one, what we found was a plus 3 and we found a plus 10. Okay. So as we write our final answer, let me draw 2 more parentheses. In the first one, the fraction 3 over 2 is not going to reduce. If it does not reduce any further and it doesn't become a whole number, I'm going to take this denominator from the bottom, move it up in front of the x. So my final answer is going to be written as 2x plus 3. The 10 divided by 2 is going to reduce to the number 5. So if this reduces to a whole number, you do so. Sometimes a fraction might reduce to a smaller fraction, but if it still is a fraction, we move the bottom up to the front, not out of the parenthesis, but still inside the parenthesis with that other variable. And that's it. This is actually the hardest of the factoring problems you can have, one that has an A out in front. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose a couple of random problems throughout all of the sections 9 through 12, and we're going to do a couple of examples for each, okay? So for each of these, you may come back and reference these steps. And we don't need to change y2. We're going to leave it with the y1 plus x. So we're going to get in a little bit of repetition and a little bit of practice here. Okay, so let's do another. I'm going to give you m squared minus 4m minus 21. I'm not going to rewrite all the steps, but I am going to write what we would type in on y1. We're going to factor into two parentheses. My a is a 1, b is negative 4, c is negative 21. So a times c is 1 times negative 21. So what I have here is going to be negative 21 divided by x. That would be my a, and my c is 1 times negative 21. Let's go to our calculator. And here on y1, I'm going to press clear and type negative 21 divided by x. Don't accidentally hit that minus key. Let me show you what happens if you do. If I accidentally, if I can get there we go. If I had accidentally hit that key, when I go second table, I get an error message. So if you accidentally do that and hit the minus instead of the negative sign, it'll let you know you did something incorrect. So let me come back here to y equals. I'm going to correct that and make it my negative sign. Now when I go second table, I can see my numbers. My middle number here is negative 4. Notice, here's negative 4, here's a positive 4. Do you see how the values are different? They're both 7s and 3s, but this is a positive 7 and a negative 3. 7 minus 3 is 4. Where the negative 4 is, a positive 3 and a negative 7 would give us the negative 4. So you have to match the sign in the third column to the middle number exactly. Then in the parenthesis, I'm going to have m plus 3 and an m minus 7. So this is going to be m plus 3 and an m minus 7. And like I said, I'm going to jump around to the different sections. Let's do, that was section 9. And in your workbook, if you notice in your workbook, it kind of jumps around all over the place. So it's not even really in a nice, neat little package there for you. Let me find another one. Let's try this one. Here's one that's going to be 6x squared minus 19x plus 10. It's in descending order. I check and there's not a common factor. So I'm going to factor it into two parentheses. When I do this, I notice I have an a value at the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and put here divided by 6. The reason I have you all write that at the beginning, because that is the one step people forget, is to divide by the a and simplify. So if you go ahead and you write it at the beginning before you even start typing anything on the calculator, then you're going to remember. So a times c here is going to be 6 times 10, which would give us 60. So we're going to use a 60 divided by x. And let me make note up here. We just used 1 times negative 21, and that's where we got the negative 21 for the first one. Okay, so we're going to go to our calculator, and we're going to do y1 equals, hit clear, and do 60 divided by x. Then we're going to go second table and look for our middle number. Our middle number, b, is a negative 19. So look in your third column. Okay, now right now I don't see it, but I just need to scroll and go further up. Keep the cursor here, and I'm going to keep going up. And yes, I see negative 19. The numbers that I have are a minus 4 and a minus 15. So they're both negative 4, negative 15. So that's going to be minus 4 and a minus 15. Now, we're not completely finished. This is one where we're going to need to simplify. So the fraction 4 over 6 can be reduced. If I simplify 4/6, and actually remember, if you do second and quit second mode, it takes you back to this screen. Let's do negative 4 divided by 6, and then math, enter, enter, and it'll reduce the fraction for us. It's a negative 2/3. So that will become x minus 2/3. We have 15 over 6. So we're going to do negative 15 divided by 6, math, enter, enter. That gives me negative 5/2. So I did simplify the fractions, but they're still fractions. So this is where I'm going to do that bottoms up. I'm going to move the bottom up in front. This first one is going to be 3x minus 2. That goes in front, and then keep the numerator. This one, what goes up in front is going to be the 2, so it's 2x minus 5. All right, one thing that we have not yet had is an example of a problem where we do have a greatest common factor. So we're going to do an example where we're going to have a GCF. We have 18y to the 4th plus 21y cubed minus 60y squared. Is it in the correct order? Yes. We have descending order, 4th power, 3rd power, 2nd power. Is there a greatest common factor? The previous ones did not have a common factor. This one does have a greatest common factor. Our numerals are 18, 21, and 60. Let's take a moment and we're going to review how we found those using the calculator. So if I come back to my calculator, if I do math, arrow right to number, and choose number 9, GCD, which is for the greatest common factor. The first two numbers we had were 18, comma, and 21. The greatest common factor for both of those is 3. You can't do more than 2 numbers at a time or you get an error message. We're going to do math, arrow right, choose number 9. We're going to start with the answer we just got, and our third number is 60. So the greatest common numeral that they have in common is going to be the number 3. So we have a 3. We have 4, 3, 2 y's. They all have at least 2 y's. So we're going to factor out of this 3y squared. That is what we're going to factor out. Then, what do we have left when we factor out this greatest common factor? 3 goes into 18 6 times. 2 y's from 4 leaves me with y squared. 3 goes into 21 7 times. I'm left with a single y. 3 will go into negative 60 a negative 20 times, the y squared cancels, so there is no y that's left, okay? So right now, this, and I'm just going to make note and draw a line down, that's going to come down to our final answer. We're still going to take this middle part that's in green, that's going to factor into two parts. Both of these are going to start with a y. Since we have, this is now going to be my A, B, and C. We're not using the original because we factored out the GCF. So now this is the trinomial we're factoring. So we have to remember to do the divided by 6. And when I get ready to do y1, my A is a 6, my C is a negative 20. 6 times negative 20 is negative 120. So we're going to do negative 120 divided by x, and our middle number, our B, is going to be that 7. So go back to your calculator. Y equals, clear the first row, negative 120 divided by x, second table, and we're looking in this column for a 7. So let me keep, it looks like positives are going that way, so let me keep going up. And there it is, we're looking for a positive 7. That gives me a positive 15 and a negative 8. A positive 15 and a negative 8. It does not matter which one you write first. What matters is that the sign that goes with it stays being the correct sign. Now we want to see if we can reduce either of these. So let's do the 15 over 6. 15 divided by 6, math, enter. That reduces to 5 halves. So this becomes y plus 5 halves. The negative 8 over 6, negative 8 over 6, math, enter. That's going to reduce to a negative 4/3. Okay, now we're ready to write our final answer. We still need to keep that 3y squared, that GCF. This was the greatest common factor. That gets brought down to our final answer. These two parentheses, they were simplified, but now we need to move the denominator from the bottom up in front. So this one is going to be 2y plus 5, and this one's going to be a 3y minus 4. Okay, let me give you another one. Let's say you are given, let's say 24 plus m squared minus 10m. If I give you this, the first thing I hope that you recognize is you want to always ask yourself, is it in the correct order? For this one, no, it's not. It needs to be in descending order. So we're going to put it in descending order. M squared would be first, minus 10m is second, and plus 24 is third. Is there a GCF? No, there's not a greatest common factor for all three. So we're now going to do our factoring. We have 1 times 24 for our A times C, and that gives us 24. So we're going to do 24 divided by x, and we're going to look for the negative 10. So go to y equals, clear the first row, 24 divided by x, second table. Our middle number was a negative 10. Okay, we see it twice, both here and here. The numbers are negative 4, negative 6. Here it's still negative 4, negative 6. The answers are the same, it's just they're on the number line close to each other. So a minus 4 and a minus 6. So m minus 4, m minus 6. There's nothing to simplify, you're finished, okay? Now, the other thing that I want to share with you is, and these are going to look more complicated because the numbers might be larger, but it's not going to be any more difficult to do, okay? But I know when you see larger numbers most people initially think, oh my gosh, it's going to be a lot harder. It's not, okay? So let's see. Okay, let's do this one. Let's say we are going to factor, and this one, you're going to probably think the order is wrong. The order is not wrong. It just looks a little confusing. And you will have one that'll be similar to this on your test. It'll be in this type of order. When you see x squared at the front, there's an xy in the middle and then a y squared on the end. Let me just make note that this is the correct order. When we factor, we first look to see if there's a greatest common factor. And there's not, see, this is not an even number, so 2 is not going to go into all of those. And this only has 7s, that doesn't go into those. So there's no greatest common factor. We're going to factor it into 2 terms. Now, the one thing I want you to take notice of is with x squared at the front, that's going to put us with an x at the front of each parenthesis. With the y squared at the end, that's going to put us with a y at the end of each parenthesis. And if we were in person, you could see me moving my fingers. When you're foiling this, your first 2 terms are your x squared. When you do the outside and then you do the inside, both of those have an xy. They give you the middle term. When you do the last, you've got a y times y. That gives you the y squared. So if you're checking your work and you're foiling it in your mind to check to be sure you had the right answer, it works out perfectly. Now, on y1, we're going to do a times c. That's 49 times 4. Okay, so 49 times 4. Well, get back to the calculator. Here we go. We're going to do 49 times 4. That gives us 196. So we're going to use 196 divided by x, and we're going to look for a negative 28. So 196 divided by x, second table, we look for a negative 28. I still need to keep scrolling a little bit more, a little bit more. There we go. We have it. Now, let me give you just a little heads up on this. If you're doing a problem and you cannot find the middle number, if in this third column that middle number does not exist, there's only a handful of problems in the computer practice like it. If that happens, you'll see an option for the answer that says it is prime. So if you see, don't find that middle number doing the calculator method, we say it is prime, meaning it is not factorable. Now, I don't want you to think I'm a storyteller. When you get to DMA 80, there will be ways that those things can be factored, but for our intent and purposes of what we're doing in this course, in this module, we're saying it's prime. When we get to 80, I'm going to explain to you how to factor and do things with ones that were prime. There's a special formula we use for those. Okay, so for the negative 28, we have a negative 14 and a negative 14. So here, what we have is a minus 14. Oh, and what did I forget to do, y'all? I was too busy talking about the x and y's. I forgot to put something down here that's very important. Since there is an a, I forgot to go ahead and write the divided by 49. Do you see how if you don't write it at the beginning before you start keying in on the calculator, I could get here and go, oh, I'm done, and think x minus 14y is my final answer. It's not. I had a moment with my brain. I was too busy focusing on explaining the concept with the x's and y's that I overlooked that. Always remember, if there's an a, go ahead and put it here before you type it in. Now we still need to reduce that fraction. So we have a negative 14 over 49. Math, enter, enter. That gives us a negative 2/7. So what we have for our answer here is going to be x minus 2/7 y. And then that's the same fraction, so that's another x minus 2/7 y. We can't leave our answer this way. They want us to take this denominator and move it up in front. So this would become 7x minus 2y. And this is also 7x minus 2y. You can write your answer this way, or do you notice both of those are identical? You could also write 7x minus 2y one time and then put it squared. You could type it either way, either type it twice or one time and write it as being squared. Both are acceptable. Okay, let me give you one more, and this is going to have a GCF, and it looks a little confusing, but it's not as hard as what you're thinking it is. When we see this, you're going, oh my goodness, what do I do here? Okay, let's just assume if it's really weird, it's in the right order. Okay, now, is there a GCF? Yes. The greatest common factor here, they all are multiples of 3. 3 goes into 12. So 3 is going to be part of the GCF. A and an X, a B and an X, a B and an X. So they all have 1X. So we're going to factor out a 3X. When I factor out 3X, this becomes A squared minus 4AB plus 4B squared. Now this is similar to the one a moment ago with the x squared, y squared. So this is still going to work. We've got our 3x, and then this is going to get factored here. It's going to start with an A. They're both going to end with a B. Now, there is no leading coefficient here. So when I go to y1, I have 1 times 4 is 4. So I'm doing 4 divided by x on the calculator. So let's do y equals 4 divided by x. Whoop, hit clear first, I'm sorry. 4 divided by x, second table, and our middle number was a negative 4. Okay, so I've got to scroll down some to get to that. Okay, we've got our negative 4. So what we have is a minus 2 and another minus 2. So minus 2 and another minus 2. And for this problem, that is your final answer. You can leave it this way, or you could write 3x. Since these two are both the same, you could write a minus 2b and put it as squared. Either way is acceptable. The last thing I want to show you is if you're factoring something that's a difference of squares. If, in other words, let me write the word, difference of squares. If you have an a squared minus a b squared, that's going to factor into an a plus b and an a minus b. If I were to give you, let's say, x squared minus 49, if we looked at this for the a squared, it would be like the x is squared minus the square root of 49 is 7. That would be like 7 squared. So my answers, this is the A, this is the B. It would be an x plus 7, and it would be an x minus 7. Now, you can memorize this formula and use it. But let me also show you how you can do it with the method we were just using. If we have x squared minus 49, aren't we missing that middle term? The missing term would be, in essence, I'm going to make note, missing term. Because if we simply had x squared minus 49, the missing term would be a 0. So if I go to factor this and I go to y1, I've still got 1 times negative 49 gives me negative 49. So we're doing negative 49 divided by x. The middle number, what we're looking for, that b, is going to be a 0. So here, on y equals, hit clear, negative 49 divided by x. When I go second table and there's a no number in the middle, the no number, that missing term, is the 0. So here we have a positive 7 and a minus 7. So here, that's our x plus 7 and our x minus 7. So even though you have a formula you could memorize, you can still use the same method that we were just using. And when you have this and there's a missing term in the middle, you're looking for a 0 for that middle term. And that gives you your values here. Let me do one last one. This one is not a perfect square, but it can still be factored. So let's look at this. Okay, here we have 49 x squared y squared minus 36. So this one would have a missing term in the middle. It will be a 0. So I'm going to factor this into two terms. These two numbers do not have a common factor. The first term is going to start with an xy, and I'm going to remember to divide everything by 49. So on y1, I'm going to do 49 times negative 36. 49 times negative 36. That gives me negative 1764 divided by x. The middle term, the b, is going to be a 0 because we are missing that term. Okay, so on y1, clear, negative 1764 divided by x, second table, and I'm going to be looking for a 0. So just keep going a little ways. It'll be there in a moment. We're almost there. We're down to single digits. All right, positive 42 and negative 42. So we're going to have, for our answer here, a positive 42 and a negative 42. We need to simplify that fraction. So we're going to do 42 divided by 49. Math, enter, enter. That gives us 6/7. So we're going to have xy plus 6/7 and xy minus 6/7. To do our final answer, we have to take this denominator and move it up in front. So final answer is going to be 7xy plus 6 and a 7xy minus 6. So the method that I've taught you using the calculator is going to function for all of your sections, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay?